Hi, I'm Tamara, and this is TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Hi, everyone. Taking care of your mental health is a conversation that never gets old. Today, we're focusing on mental health in the workplace with Paula Allen from TELUS Health. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hi, Paula. It's great to see you.
A pleasure to be here.
So I'm really curious to talk to you about what you are seeing in your research, when you're talking to researchers and looking at what the new, because I hear people talking about this new work-life balance, because I think the pandemic, which we are technically still in, has really changed how people view the balance of their life and their mental health. So maybe we could start with that. Some of the, top things that you're finding.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of things. So sometimes we need a crisis to help us pay attention to the things that are important. And unfortunately, we had the crisis of the pandemic and all the fallout from it. But the good news is it really did make us pay attention to what is important. And in particular, our mental health. So business leaders, individuals, parents, we realize that as human beings, we have some vulnerabilities, we have some needs, and we have to invest in what's important, including our mental health. And the other thing that it really brought home is just this whole concept of work and life and what that means. So for a long time, people thought about work-life separation and work-life balance and things of that sort. But what's really coming up is a realization, and it's an accurate one, that your work is a part of your life. It's not over there. It's not separate. The hours that you spend working, the time that you spend with colleagues, how you feel about yourself when you are doing the tasks of your job and feeling accomplished or challenged or not, that actually is a part of your life that contributes to who you are. And you better make some good decisions around where you work and how you work in order to make sure that it is a good life decision.
Gosh, that's such a good point. And I think it's something that we all know it, but again, you're right. It was this crisis, right, that really, it's like people who have a health crisis, an individual health crisis, and they end up in the hospital, or they go through cancer care, or they get through surgery, life-saving surgery, and they say their perspective has changed, right, on life as they know it. This was like a worldwide perspective shift almost, right? Where people were like, what am I doing? What is important to me? But it's not as easy as saying, oh, I'm going to work less and take care of myself more, or I'm going to, always hated my job, so I'm just going to quit it. It's not that easy, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, there's so many factors that go into the decisions. And, we have some information around what's really important to people. We asked, and when I say we asked, TELUS Health has a mental health index. And that's really given us some extraordinary insights into what's going on with the working population, with mental health and work and everything in between. So just to explain the index a little bit, we had been developing it and collecting benchmarks from 2017 to 2019. So well before the pandemic hit, or we even contemplated that we would have a pandemic, because we need to improve the way we are, and you can't improve what you don't measure. So we had that in the before times data. And we also have data that we're collecting on a monthly basis, and we started that in April of 2020. So a couple of things. First is that we saw a change in mental health, and then we really saw some clear indication of what's important to employees with respect to their mental health. The change that we saw was extraordinary. So we saw a real decline in the mental health of the working population overall. And that's not to be surprising. Like, we're all human beings. And when we go through change, we get tense. We don't like that. Like, even somebody like myself who says that they like change, when you really look at it, I like change, that I control. I like
Yeah.
change when I make decisions about what's going to change. I don't like random change that is out of my control. And that's what we experience. We don't like isolation. Our human spirit needs to connect with other people. That is a big stress reducer. We don't like uncertainty. So a lot of things that happened because of out of necessity are stressors on the human mind. So we really saw a change in the mental health of the working population. People who had some level of risk moved into high risk. We had, increases in a lot of behaviors that were not necessarily healthy. And we have an increase in sensitivity to stress. So let me talk a little bit more about that. So about half of the working population, we do this mental health index globally, so we saw it in other countries as well. About half of the working population right now is more sensitive to stress than we were in 2019. So not that long ago. And again, the reasons why, when you are under strain for a long period of time, and we were under strain. There was a lot of uncertainty, ups, downs, changes, a whole bunch of things going on, kids in school, not in school. And then we went into how are we going to work and what is, like, there's a lot going on for a long period of time. The part of your brain that's responsible for fight or flight, part of your brain that's responsible for vigilance when you're going through a lot of uncertainty, that goes into hyperdrive. And the part of your brain that's responsible for empathy and emotional regulation, that's fighting for energy. So we right now are a little bit more on edge, a little bit more angry, a little bit more cynical. People dealing with the public are really experiencing that. And that's important to know, because you can't control something, you can't manage something, you can't get that unless you just acknowledge it. So it is important for us to sort of invest in our ability to manage stress. When we're dealing with other people, take a beat before we're sort of responding quickly, and realize that we are kind of a more on edge than we were beforehand.
Yeah. And I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I think that, I mean, millions and millions and millions of people have also died from COVID in the last 3 years, like tens of millions, hundreds, like so many, right? Not hundreds of millions, sorry, tens of millions. And I think that, even if you didn't know anybody that, was severely affected by this pandemic, that stress still sits with us, doesn't it? It's like a collective stress almost.
Yeah, it is. It's like a collective trauma, and some people labeled it as such. The rug was really pulled out from under us. We weren't prepared for it. It was a lot of high risk. We have to acknowledge that. It's very, very easy to say, "Oh, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to move on." But of course, we're going to go about our day-to-day lives. But this is a big deal. We have an opportunity as a society to move beyond this, because we haven't really improved in terms of the impact of the pandemic a whole lot, but we can. We can invest in self-care. Mental health is a bit of a team sport, so how we treat each other makes a difference. And we also found workplaces made a difference, which is to your next point.
Yeah. And I mean, this is what I find so interesting, because workplaces have changed too. So I mean, I know that, there's lots of talk in the news about, hybrid work and other companies wanting everybody back, and then workers going, wait a minute, that's not how I want my life to be now. And, so it's a very interesting conversation that's happening. And so, it really becomes, how do we cope in workplaces? Like, how do we manage our stress and our well-being if we're not getting the workplace support we need? Or is that, I guess, it's confusing, because you have yourself, and then you have your employer, right? So what if you work at a place where the employer is like, sorry, like, I gotta make hay now, and you need to come into work and do this. Like, how do we equip individuals to recognize it's such a hard thing, and I think it almost adds to more stress when you think about it, right?
Yeah. It's definitely adding to more stress because remember what I said the human mind doesn't like? One of the things that we really don't like is change. And what are we going through right now? We're going through change. We don't conflict. What are we going through right now? A lot of polarization in people's opinions. We'll survive it, but it is a difficult time right now. And I think we have to sort of go back to first principles in terms of what people absolutely need. So I'll talk about the difference between work at home and not. But whatever your work environment is, whether you're working at home, whether you're working in an office, whether you're working in a shipping yard, whether you're working whatever the situation is, there are some very basic things that we know through research, through our data and others, make a difference in terms of whether the workplace is supportive of mental health and well-being or not. One is just being psychologically safe. So, big word. We've been hearing a whole lot, but let's go to break it down in terms of what it means. It means that you don't feel at risk saying what's on your mind. If you're communicating respectfully, you have ideas, you're not feeling that you're going to be shut down or criticized, including ideas about where or how you should work. What it means is you're not feeling that you are being denigrated. It means that you are being accepted for the person that you are, and you don't have to, use up a whole lot of emotional energy trying to pretend to be something or someone else that's different. It means that, you're not looking over your shoulder, that you have open and transparent communication, and you're not worried about the next dagger that's going to fall or just as the human mind, tends to go, because you don't know anything that impacts you. You don't know about changes that might be impacting you. You don't have input into decisions that you automatically think that things are not going to be going in your favor. So all of those things make a difference regardless of where you are. Feeling valued is important. And let me tell you why that's even more important right now. Our need to feel valued and recognized goes up when we're under strain. And we just talked about the fact that we are under strain now more than we were before. So that need for recognition, that's really very significant right now. And a sense of belonging and a sense of support. So all of those are important for organizations to really pay attention to. And the whole work from home dialogue fits into this actually quite nicely. So I think the first thing is that respect and that communication and that psychological safety to speak about how is the best way to get that work done. And there's two parts of the best way to get work done. There's the tactical part, and there's also the part about making sure that the workers are at their best. So if you have that as your core, that getting work done necessitates people functioning at your best, it opens up a really nice conversation. The other part around it, and when we did surveys, we realized how important these two things are. One was flexibility and a sense of control. That's really important. And that, I think, is what employers are striving to do. Some are doing it quite easily. Some are not doing it quite as easily because you have to unravel prior culture. But we've known for a long time that when people have a sense of control, when they have flexibility, and it's not only just where you work, because 70% of the working population can't work at home, but the ability to step away from your office or your desk or whatever you're doing, for a period of time to take care of things that are important to you. You're not letting work slide. You're just, you have a little bit of flexibility maybe in the hours or how you break it up, or like anything that helps you with this whole, complicated circle that includes work and includes life and personal health and a whole bunch of things. But flexibility, let's think about flexibility in the broadest terms, not only in terms of where people work, but certainly where they work is a part of that.
Everything you just said makes perfect sense. And you can apply it to life in general, not just with your employer, right? Especially, I'm still stuck back when you were talking about feeling valued.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we all want, whether we're in school or with our employer or, as simple like finding a family doctor, whatever it might be, right? Like all the things that we need to just feel safe and valued. And it's so true. And I mean, when you said valued, it just really really hit me, because I do feel like in a lot of ways, that's what we are collectively feeling, is that maybe we aren't valued because we are polarized in a lot of ways when it comes to whether, it's our work life or whether it's what we think, our local government or federal government or provincial government, no matter where you live in Canada, is doing, whether they're doing it right or not right. And scrolling social media can be not make you feel very valued, right? So it's so interesting that your research shows this, and that it really doesn't just apply to our workplace. It applies to almost everything that we do as we move through life. We all want to feel valued and like we're contributing in a positive way.
Exactly. And back to the point that work is just a part of life. It's just time that you are spent. Like it's not that much. We need to feel safe. We talked about that. We need to feel valued. We talked about that. We need to feel a sense of belonging.
Yes.
We talk a lot about work from home, but some employers, it isn't enough to say you can work from home. Like that, I'll just say flat out. If you don't have, positive communications, if you aren't supporting your people to be successful, if you're not connecting with them, and managers don't have the capacity to help people feel a sense of belonging, then having that work flexibility, it isn't enough. It might be great in one sense, but it is certainly not enough. People need a number of things, but none of them are onerous. And if you think about any area of your life, any area where you don't feel a sense of belonging, where you don't feel supported, when you don't feel valued, where you don't feel safe, even as I'm saying that, I'm feeling tense, right? Like that's no way that you're going to be able to support people's well-being and their health and their productivity if you don't focus on those things as a fundamental starting point.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, listen, we wouldn't want anyone to feel that way if they were in school.
Oh.
Why would we want that same person to feel that way in their workplace? We wouldn't, right?
And the point of support is important as well, because that's the other thing that we found really super important. And it goes across the board in terms of support. So support in terms of help when you need it, just to get your job done. Who can you turn to? Who can you, do you feel isolated if you're having a challenge at work? But also the very tangible support that's offered when you have some sort of challenge. You might, not be feeling great yourself, and you might need some personal confidential support. There are benefits that employers offer that are life-changing. We're supporting, medications and things of that sort that help keep people alive and functional. Support in terms of, childcare and access to the information, just sort of that life support. Like when you think about a great relationship, you have that trust, you have that sense of safety, you have that sense of belonging, but the other person in that relationship is there for you when you need them. So not all that different in a workplace relationship.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so we always like to thank our guests by asking them to choose a registered Canadian nonprofit, and where we will contribute $500 to thank you for being here. And you chose, I'm glad you chose this one, the TELUS Friendly Future Foundation, which is a great foundation and gives back an enormous amount. So we will be contributing $500 to that foundation to thank you, Paula, for being here. And as we wrap up our conversation, and, if there are employers listening and they're thinking, whether they're a small business, right? Or because obviously larger organizations have more resources where they can support their workers. But, small businesses, it's, is it, when we look at the spectrum of employers, right? This applies to all of them there are different ways to do it, right? So what would what would you recommend to someone who's looking for a job right now, say, and they're not sure if their employer will be supportive or not?
Well, the thing is, so we have a lot of information at this point on different employers. It's kind of hard for employers to hide. If you're supportive of your people speak very highly of you. And this is whether it's a small employer or a larger employer. It feels different when you are in an environment and you see coworkers and how they interact with each other and how they speak about the employer. It is very, very different. There is a gratitude that people have when they are in a safe and healthy place that you will not see otherwise. But the other thing I would really pay attention to is when people are not at their best, like when there's something going on, there's anxiety, there's angst, there's fear, there's the opposite of all those things that we talked about before in terms of what keeps people healthy, and they don't feel supported. They're tense, they have their brain locked in a particular way, and in spite of the best efforts, there's things that are going to suffer. You're going to see innovation, creativity, collaboration, and customer service suffer. So the highest and best functioning organizations in those areas are typically the highest and best functioning organizations in terms of investment in the well-being of their people.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense, right? It's kind of, if your business needs employees and it's in your best interest to treat those employees as the gold they are, because your business can't function without employees.
Especially now. It's a very powered economy. Like the technology is amazing, but it's kind of leveling the playing field. Like what makes the difference is how people use that technology, which is the innovation. What makes the difference is how they solve problems, which is the collaboration. What makes the difference is how they engage with their client group, which is the customer service. And these are all things that end up not being in a great place when your well-being is not in a great place.
So if an organization is, listening right now, or if, somebody's listening right now and they're like, gosh, I don't get any of this at my work, I'm, wow, this makes sense to me. And I need to think about, my future as an employee somewhere. What do you have? Is there somewhere people can go to get more information, or is there, it seems to, I guess, what is your recommendation to somebody who's listening right now who is not supporting their employees, or somebody who is feeling like they are not supported?
Yeah. So I think, I don't remember who it was. It was some famous person who said, you can't do better unless you know better. And I find that often to be the case. There are a few individuals and there are a few leaders that really don't care, but they're few and far between. Believe me, the majority just don't know. They just haven't had the realization that this is an important driver. There's still people who think that they have to put people in a position of fear in order for them to work the best. And that's just not true. When you're in a position of fear, you make a lot of mistakes. Some people feel that, supporting mental health in the workplace is only for big companies with a whole bunch of money and is very complicated, which it's not. Something as simple as an EAP is pennies compared to other benefits and other costs in an employer. So I really think that there is the power of communication and the power of knowledge. So as an employee, you can ask, you can say, you can observe, you can push your employer to do a little bit better. You can, encourage them to look at different opportunities. If that doesn't happen, if it's not the right thing for you or not the right place for you, then that's one piece of information and a whole bunch of other pieces of information about whether you stay or whether you go. But I give people the benefit of the doubt as a first stop, because you'd be surprised how many employers just didn't realize that, for example, an employee assistance program or training managers reaps benefits that wrap around the world twice in terms of improving the quality of the workplace and improving the quality of everything the workplace delivers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paula. This has really been a great conversation. And I appreciate you sharing what you and your team have, been researching for years now. So this is excellent. I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you. Thanks for listening to another episode of TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Be sure to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for another conversation. You can also check out our website, telus.com/podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at TELUS Talks.